say it.
Harry Grows Up, The Early Years of Lee Kuan Yew by Patrick Yee.
Did Patrick Yee die?
Don't ask questions during the recording.
Okay.
By Patrick Yee. Raffles College was an exciting place to be a 17-year-old. Harry was eager to learn. Because he had received a scholarship, Harry had to stay on the campus in one of the residence halls. Harry took a while to get used to living with 19 other students in the big, unfamiliar territory. It was always so noisy, and he didn't like the food that was served. It also took Harry a while to get used to going to class and wearing a coat and tie. He felt terribly uncomfortable, since the rooms were not air-conditioned.
Oh.
But the worst thing about his first year at Raffles College was something called hazing.
Oh, what is that?
Every first-year student had to go through it as a part of college life. He was forced by the senior students to wear a green tie and wave a green flag.
What are senior students mean?
The older ones. Each college student had to choose 3 subjects, and so he chose English, math, and economics. Harry enjoyed and scored well in his math exams, and he was regularly the best student, but he could not believe that he wasn't the best in English and economics. The person who beat him for first place in both those subjects was a girl named Kwa Gyok Chu. Harry had known that Gyok Chu when he was at Raffles Institution, as she was the only girl at the school. It bothered him she would be competing with him for the Queen's Scholarship. However, Harry would soon have something much more troubling.
He noticed it before he met him at camp?
Yeah, they knew each other back at Raffles Institution.
What's Raffles Institution?
But suddenly...
Gotta stop. What's Raffles?
The school before the school. At 4 a.m. on 8 December 1941, Harry was woken up from his bed at Raffles College by the sound of bombs exploding. You see, Singapore was being attacked by Japan. There were no lessons as teachers and students fled the campus. Although there was chaos all around, Harry was not afraid. In fact, he felt a little excited to be involved in a war. He quickly signed up to help out with the Raffles College branch of the Medical Auxiliary Services, and he paid $60 a month. Harry wore a tin helmet and an armband with a red cross on it, and he rode his bike 6 miles a day to the college from his home at Norfolk Road. No one knew how long the Japanese were going to be in Singapore, so the schools closed and Harry was left to take care of the family home in Norfolk Road while his mother took his younger siblings to stay at her father's house in Telok Kurau. Before she left, his mother filled the air raid shelter with canned goods, rice, and other foods that could last a while. With no work, no school, and the feeling of danger surrounding them every day, Harry and many others in Singapore felt somewhat lost. It seemed safest to simply stay home, but Harry was not content to just sit at home and do nothing. So he decided to learn Chinese. He brought a book called Mandarin Made Easy that taught 700 Chinese characters. And after 2 weeks, he went back to the store to buy book 2. When he was done with that, he bought a series of books to practice Chinese, and over the next few months, he would study and learn to write about 1,500 Chinese words. What was interesting about learning Chinese was that it made Harry object less to learning Japanese. Since it seemed like the Japanese were here to stay, Harry figured that it would benefit him and his family to learn Japanese in order to help them find work and also to avoid trouble. So he enrolled for a 3-month course at a Japanese language school on Queen Street. And the funny thing was that he found learning Japanese much easier than learning Chinese. Now that Harry knew some Japanese, he was able to find work. Mr. Shimoda, a Japanese friend of his grandfather's, hired him as a clerk in the company, and he copied documents and letters. Then he worked as a clerk for an association that managed staples like rice, oil, sugar, salt, and also cigarettes. This proved very useful.
Did I say cigarettes?
That's what they sold. This proved very useful because it was often paid in these items. After several months, Harry moved on to work as an English language editor at a Japanese information agency called the Hobadu. His job was to translate cables or messages that were written
Did
in
it start
Morse
still the
code.
Hobadu?
No, not anymore.
But
That's where
did
the
you
war
ever
is
hear about it?
No, it was something in the war. A lot of things became hard to find during this time. Cars were mainly used by the Japanese, and local people who had cars often could not get petrol to run them. Bicycle tires and cloth were also scarce. Harry and many others made shirts and pants out of cloth meant for curtains and tables. And since it was getting hard to live on just his salary, Harry had to come up with other ways to make money. It so happened that a stationery store asked Henry if he would supply them with glue. Working with his friend Euclid, who was a science graduate, they successfully created a glue which they called Stickfast. Good fortune seemed to be on Harry's side. Not only did the glue-making business put money in his pocket, it also turned out that the sister of Euclid's wife was Kwa Gyuk Chu.
Then what did that mean?
His business partner's wife's sister was Kwa Gyuk Chu, the person who he was competing with in school. And the four of them worked together regularly, and Harry felt comfortable enough to invite them, including the girl he now called Chu, to his 21st birthday dinner at Great World, which was then an amusement park. Great World? We know where that is.
Was I alive when that happened?
No,
When it was
neither was I.
What
By the
did it
end-
look, Dada?
It looked like this.
No,
What
Dada.
does that say right there?
I don't know.
Read it.
I don't know.
Great World.
World.
Whoa, that's a great world. Did it look like before? Cool. Harry continued to see Chu at her home in Tiongbaru. The Japanese families ended the rule of Singapore when they surrendered in August 1945. And like everyone, Harry was relieved. He was looking to finish his studies, but worried it would be another 3 years before he could get his diploma from Raffles College. It would be another year before school opened. And so, discussing it with his mother, he decided he should go study law in England. The money would come from her savings, as well as Harry's earnings. And so he went to England.
Dada, may I make the voice of Harry for the last few parts?
Sure. By this time, Harry knew Chu was the woman he would marry, so he decided to get married
Dada,
with
you
her.
do the voice of Q.
Bye, Harry.
Bye.
His 23rd birthday was bittersweet.
I wish I was.
He sailed away and waved goodbye.
Oh, hi, Harry, hi. Hi, I'm so glad to see you.
But luckily, Chu could come to England, and they did, and they studied at the University of Cambridge. Wow. And they
Oh,
decided...
I love that.
One of the things they noticed was that he seemed different. He was now more serious and very concerned about how the British people owned Singapore. He wanted Singapore to run itself. And so his years of study went by, and he went home to work in a law firm of Laycock and Ong. After getting...
Is that still Lee Clarkin on?
I don't think so. His father was quite taken aback at Harry's bold behavior. Then Harry asked him if he could marry him, but he decided Harry was a good guy, so he said, "Sure, go ahead and marry my daughter, Chu." 2 years later,
Dada,
Harry,
who did he ask? Dada?
the father of Chu.
Why did he say my daughter?
In the old days, men would have to ask their wife's father to marry them. And they had their first child named...
He's the new president. Right, Dada? Xian Liu, and he's still alive.
Xian Lung.
He's still alive.
And a sister, Wei Ling, and a brother, Xiang Lang. And that is almost done. Oh, one more. Harry enjoyed his work with the law firm. He was more frustrated about the way that Singapore was being governed. He felt the colonial government of England was not good, and so he turned his efforts to organizing
Dada,
a
that
political
wasn't true.
party.
They were actually good, right?
They were good, but he wanted Singaporean people to rule themselves, and so he formed the People Actions Party, and he was ready to change the history of
No,
Singapore,
Dada, don't, Dada.
which you will see in the next book.
No, Dada, don't, Dada. Just tell his family.
It all starts with Lee Bok Bung, the great-grandfather, who had Lee Hung Leong, the grandfather, and married Ko Lim Nio, and they had Lee Chin Kung, the father, and Chua Jim Nio, the mother, and they're the ones that had Harry Lee Kuan Yew. and he married Kwa Gyok Chu, also just known as Chu, and they had three kids: Lee Hsien Loong, who became the prime minister, Li Wenling, and Li Xian Yang.
Who did Li Xian become?
Nothing. He's just a son. And that's the story
Of
of Harry Grows Up.